Welcome back to Be Yourself Quilting. I'm Belinda, and today I want to show y'all an idea I had. Now, this isn't going to be probably for everybody because it probably uses quite a bit more fabric than if you do it in a traditional manner. But I just got through doing this quilt here, and the amount of half square triangles in that quilt were astronomical. And I made it in 3 days. So I was just kind of tired of half square triangles, but I had an idea using panels, and it required a lot of half square triangles. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this again. So my brain needed a break from half square triangles. And so I came up with an idea, and I'm sure it's not original. I'm sure somebody's done it, but I've never done it. So I'm going to share it with y'all and see what y'all think. It's kind of a faux half square triangle, if you want to say it like that. I used scraps for part of this, but the yardage I'm going to give you is for if you bought yardage. If you have scraps, please use them. If I had scraps for all of it, I'd have done scraps for all of it. I just didn't. I had been making so many scrap quilts lately that I didn't have enough to make a quilt to go with these panels. And it's going to be a huge quilt. This quilt is probably going to be about 75 by 75 when I finish. I don't know why I designed it this way, but I did, and now here we go. Let me show y'all what I'm talking about. This is the block. Now this block is called the Rocky Mountain Puzzle block. I made two versions of it. One of them, the half square triangles face, and then the other one, they're this way. Because when they come together in the actual quilt design, I wanted them to have this secondary look with these squares. So I did mine this way. You do not have to do yours that way. Make them all slant in the same direction if you want to. I just divided mine in half, did half in one direction and half in the other. And I'll show you that when we get to the sewing machine. But I just wanted to point that out. Also, because I'm using panels and not fabric, I do need to make sure that my quilt, my block, my panel is right side up. It is directional. So these blocks came from Heartland series, Heartland QT Fabrics. This panel was 30458R, and it's called Panel Form Picture Patch. Now there's 20 blocks in this particular panel. I didn't do all 20 blocks. I chose the 16 that I liked the most, and I used them. In order to do these blocks, I trimmed these blocks to 7 inches square. That allowed me to have this little piece where it's bordered showing. I didn't cut into the red for part of the panel because I felt like, you know, when panels, sometimes they're kind of crooked. And I felt like the red was really making that crookedness show up. But just using this part makes it look like it's got a double frame when it doesn't. I'm going to put this on the side. All right, so what I did was I took the panel and I bordered it top and bottom. And I'll give y'all a little view here. So the original panel was just this piece here. Let me see. I think I have a piece over here like this. This was the original panel. This is what I had. See, some places the red shows a little bit, but when you put your 1/4 inch on there, it disappears, and it does kind of straighten out. So the first step I did was take and add a top and bottom border to it. And then after I did that, I added sides. And I ended up with panels like this. Okay, so I'm going to put this to the side. Just wanted to kind of give y'all a feel for it. And I ended up with a block like this. This block should measure 8.5 inches square once you put this on there. Let's take one moment here. And I'm going to put up all the information about the fabric you need to make the size quilt that I am making. Your blocks may be smaller, your blocks may be bigger for your middle. I just based my block off of an 8.5 inch unfinished size. So if you can get to that, great. If not, you're going to have to make some adjustments on yours. You may have to make your yellow, what I'm using for yellow here, border bigger. I really wouldn't make it smaller, but to make it fit. And you don't have to use a panel. Maybe you have a piece of fabric that you really, really like, and you've been wanting to use it for something. Cut it 8.5 inches, and you don't have to put a border on it at all. A lot of times we have those layer cakes, and maybe they've got these beautiful flowers and something, or I don't know, whatever that you like may be in it. You can just cut it 8.5 inches, and then you don't have to put a border on it at all. Or if you want to put a border on it, then you can cut it 7 inches and then add the borders. That's up to you. But anyway, your goal here is to get this block to 8.5 inches square before you start adding anything else to it. Now, the next thing you're going to need is background fabric. I'm calling this white the background fabric, okay? And I cut these blocks 4.5 inches. This is big blocks if they finish at 16.5 inches. So I have 192. Then you're also going to need 160 shades of whatever you want your half square to look like. I chose the green. And as you can see, it totally changed the feel of that panel. It's very, very country looking here with the red, but putting the green on it, I feel like just totally changed the feel of those blocks. So I did get anything that I had in my scraps. I used scraps. Otherwise, I just went through in these shades of kind of olive greens through my stash, and I pulled out what I had. Some pieces were big pieces. Some pieces were little pieces. I just cut it up. Doesn't bother me that there's more than one of the fabric in the block. And if they're touching, I don't care. I tried to mix them up as best I could, but you know what? Sometimes it just happens, and it's just nothing to worry about. It's scrappy. So that's my scrappy part. So what I did was I took these squares, and I'll just grab this one because that's what I'm going to show you. Took them to the iron, folded them in half, and pressed really good. I wanted a nice, flat, crisp edge along the diagonal. And here we go. Here's some here. Now, it takes 10 of these per block. All I did was take a background piece. I can get them to separate. Here we go. And I took one of these. Okay. And I lined it up along 2 edges. And when I sewed my block together, it caught the edges and it put the block on there. Now, you're probably wondering, so let me show you. Go back to this. Yes, it's like a little pocket there. Not a true half square triangle. It's a faux half square triangle. And yes, the seam allowances are thick. I pressed them open as much as I could. But it saved me hours and hours in trimming. There was no trimming with this block. 4.5 inches for the color, 4.5 inches for the background. No trimming. So we're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and we're going to make a block together. And I think you'll find this interesting. I'm making 16 of these blocks. You can make however many you want. You can make more, you can make less. You can arrange them. I'm making a square, but you can arrange them in a different format. It's entirely up to you how you want to do it. I'm just giving you the measurements and all for what I did. So you can follow along if you would like to. It's very simple and it's very fast. Now that we're at the sewing machine, I want y'all to see what I've done here. So I kind of laid it out the way I'm going to put it together. These blocks, like I said, we just added the little yellow border, which the size is in the description. And then this gave me my center block, and right now it measures 8.5 inches. All of my half square triangles and my corner squares all measure 4.5 inches. All I did was take these half square triangles like I showed y'all, and I placed them on my background squares and formed this half square triangle. Now I did take and put a little touch of, let me show y'all, glue stick on these tips and on the corner. You don't have to do that. I just didn't want mine slipping, and I didn't want to use pins because sometimes pins have a habit of distorting a little bit. I don't have any super thin pins, so I don't have that problem. So this is disappearing washable Elmer school glue. It is purple when you put it on. It's clear when it dries. And I use this stuff all the time on all kind of projects. All right, guys. So to sew this block, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew these two sides together on each side. And I'm going to do chain piecing. Now, I'll just do one block with y'all, but doing the whole quilt, I'm going to chain piece. So I will sew these two together, and then this side, these two. Then I will press these seams open and sew it to the center block. Next, I will sew these two, then these two, and then sew this group together as one. These two, sew this together as one. When it comes to pressing, on these, when I added them here, I will press towards the center block. And when it comes to these, I will press to the outside where it's just a plain join. Everything else will get pressed open, including this side. Because of the thickness, you will need to probably press most of your seams open. It is thick because we have 3 layers here, okay? And once you sew it in your block, those layers are locked in. And I'll just show you this real quick. I'll pull this one off. See, I had it with the glue. Let me push this out of the way. And all I did was take this little glue stick right here. And I just put a little glue here and there and yonder. Just mostly made sure the tips were done. And then I just took my corner and I lined it up on this edge. Made sure this tip was right. Then I double checked the tip here and just gave it a little tap, and that's all it took. Now it's glued in place. And I did that to every one, and I pre-did that to everyone. So my steps were cut the blocks, iron the color to the half square triangle, and then I tap glued every block in place. This is easy, busy work while you're watching TV or something. It's not like you've got to be worried about it, and you may not care. You may be able to hold yours in place very easily, or you may have some other way you can think about holding it in place without having to glue it. I just didn't want mine slipping, especially in filming. I did not want anything slipping. I wanted y'all to be able to see just how it is. So I'm just going to get to sewing. Any of y'all who have been watching me for a while know that I like to press. And I'm putting it back in the right position, or I should say the correct position, before I begin to sew, because I always like to double check that I'm sewing it correctly. And although you can't see it, in front of me over here, that is a finished block that I am watching as I'm sewing to make sure that I am doing this correctly. So sometimes it's best just to do one block, put it out there for you to keep your eye on, and then continue on. Okay, so the next step is going to be to sew this side on this side, and then this side to the other side. I'm going to leave it sit there for a minute because I don't want to get it mixed up. So on this one, let me turn this camera just a bit. I'm just making sure that the white edge is lined up with the yellow edge, because remember I told y'all I trimmed these blocks to 8.5 inches when I got through sewing them. And then this white edge is here. I'm just going to turn it. Okay, so let's look at this. See how nice that comes out? This side. So I'm going to press in this direction towards the chicken on both sides now. Okay, there's our center. I'm going to put that back in place in the middle. And then I'm going to construct the bottom piece and the top piece for it. I'm just going to start with the bottom because it's closest to me. Now since I'm chain piecing, I'm going to go ahead and grab the top. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the top two because I know those two go together. I'm going to lay it out. I'm looking over here. Corner is solid. This is still angled in the same direction. I'm going to open this up. All three of these should be angled in the same direction. So now I'm going to sew the center together. Okay, I know the bottom was the first one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this one. As I said, this seam, this first seam, I'm going to press towards the outside. I know you'll have a shadow there, but this is just the way it locks in better. Everything else, I'm going to press the seams open. And I'm going to do the same thing on the top one, only opposite on this direction. Of this one will get pressed to the outside also towards the solid block. Okay, so now I've placed these in place. Now to put the top and bottom on this block, I do it a little different, okay? I am going to pin. You don't have to pin if you're comfortable with it. I found that if I didn't pin, I seem to have a little bulk in the middle. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to, this is going to nest here. These seams are going to nest really good. Okay, good and tight there. So I'm going to nest that along there, just like I always do. And I'm going to put in a pin. Now I'm going to go to this side. So this seam is pressed open, okay? And of course this seam is pressed the opposite direction. And this is, it's still going to nest because there's such thickness on this side that it will cause it to go ahead and nest there. You may not be able to see it, but you will be able to feel it when you're making your own quilt. Oops. Hopefully I don't stick that pin under my fingernail. I hate it when I do that. Okay, so I've got that. So now for my center, I'm going to go ahead and just put a little, get this corner lined up good. And I'm just going to put a little stay pin here just to hold it. I'm going to do the same thing on this end. Now see, this one, you got to move it a little bit and make sure that corner's in there. I have one I did not do that to, and it came out crooked, and I didn't like it when I was practicing, so I had to take it apart. Now, so this middle, this is where I got a little bulk. So what I did was I got myself a pin, and I just took it, and I went like that. I'd see my hands, I just went like that, and it straightened that right out. When it did that, I just put my hand here for pressure in the middle and stuck my pin in. And now when I sew it, it'll be the equal amounts on both sides. It won't push it in one direction or another. For some reason, when I did it the other way, it just pushed it. Let me grab this top piece here. Oops. Now, because I'm doing it this way, I'm going to be able to go ahead and pin both sides. And then I'll be able to just sew down one side to the other, and the block will be finished. Just remember when you're doing this, double check yourself, because the colors should all be touching your center block. So if you put it on there and you just got tips touching, you've got it backwards. Turn it around and make sure your big part of color is touching your center block. Same thing. I'm not stretching it. All I'm doing, when I do that, it causes the blocks to straighten themselves out and align along this outer edge. All right, guys, so let's look at it. That is good, good, good. That's good, very good. And that one could have had a little more taken out of it. Very good. Okay, so this is this block completed. When I get them all done, I will take them over to the ironing board. This seam will get pressed open, and this seam will get pressed open. And this is how I'll show you how that looks. So this is one that I had already completed. And when you flip it over, see, I had pressed this seams open. Okay? And that is all there is to making this block. Now there's a few of them. There's 16 of them, and they're 16.5 inches unfinished, 16 finished. So they are quite large, and it's going to make a large quilt. I'm going to get busy and get the rest of these blocks finished, and I'll see y'all in a bit. Well, everybody, look there. She's all up on the wall. So now the sashing strips between are cut 3 by 16.5, and there's 24 of those. And then the cornerstones, that kind of gray color you see there, they are cut 3 by 3, and there's 9 of them. Now, I chose to go with the sashing strips, the same color as the background, because I just think it opened it up and made the quilt field a whole lot cleaner. Let's see if I can point this out without getting in front of the camera. Here we go, right here. This one and this one are two opposite blocks. These point in that direction and these point in that. And you have a square that's made here where we have this little square come together. This repeats over here, down here, and over here. I don't know if that one shows. So there's basically 4 sets there. I'm not sure about the final size of this quilt yet. I haven't decided on the borders. I kind of think I know what I want to do, but not positive. So my next step will start sewing this together. Here are my blocks that I pulled off the wall. I already done row 1. This is row 2. I just wanted to test and see what I did and didn't like. First of all, I will iron and I will pin. I want to keep these blocks as straight as possible. This is quite a large quilt, and I don't want it looking off willy-nilly, and I definitely don't want my sashing strips looking all crooked and crazy. So that'll be my first step. I pulled them off the wall, starting with the bottom one, and I added it with my sashing strip right sides together. So I know that this is my corner to sew, and I know that they are set up to sew with right sides together. The next thing that came along was a sashing strip and a cornerstone. That'll go next. And then we have a block and a sashing, cornerstone and a sashing, block and sashing, cornerstone and sashing, and then a block and a sashing. And that is how I will chain piece these all together in that order. I will show you what I mean by pinning. I'm going to match my corner. Then I'm going to go match my other corner. And then I'm just going to do that same thing I did previously. That's in the right direction. And I am going to just give it a little push so that it straightens it out. Put a pin here in the middle. That's it. Just like that. And I'll just sew along here. I found pinning actually allowed me to sew a little faster than not pinning. I wasn't worried about everything being in place. I knew it was in place. Okay guys, this is it. I'm just going to keep sewing, pinning and sewing like this till I get this whole row completed. Once I get this whole row completed in this fashion, I will go ahead and iron, restack everything up so it makes sense in order, and then I will be back to show you how to join the blocks together with the center sashings. Okay, so this is all the blocks with the sashing sewed or the cornerstone sewed to it. So this is all my blocks for this row. Now I need to connect these blocks together. We're going to flip this over, okay, just like that. And I'm going to take the bottom block and a sashing cornerstone block. Now, when I did my test, I messed up and I put it on the bottom down here. Let me get it so you can see it. Okay, I put it down here on the bottom and I had to rip it out. These go to the top because there is no sashing around the outside. So it will be sewed to the top just like that. Again, I'm going to, sorry, like I said, I don't have a big counter. I'm going to match my corners. Before I match my corner, I'm going to go ahead and match my, right there, that's my nesting seam where the two, the cornerstone and the sashing come together. I pressed, I don't know if I mentioned this, I can't remember. So I pressed toward the sashing. In all areas, I pressed toward the sashing. It just made it coming together where everything would nest easily. And then again, I'm just going to grab me a little pin here. Just give it a little push. Kind of give it a little place right here in the middle. And I'm going to sew. Okay, again, just going to check it. I know it needs to go to the top and not the bottom. So I'm going to pin it in place and keep sewing. Okay, guys, when I get this part done, I'll get right back with you. Okay, so I have them stacked up here. Now remember, the top block doesn't have a top sashing on it yet. We're fixing to put it together. So in order to do this, I'm just going to take my first block and put it right side together with my second block, and I will pin along this edge, just like I have been doing. So one end, and I'll line this up here. Sure that nests together. And that. And I'll sew these two together like that. And then I'll take this set, and this is my third and fourth block. How's my bottom? So I will be sewing this line together. You know, you want your top and your bottom edges to be lined up. Hey guys, so this is my bottom, so I'm going to push that aside. I'm going to sew my top blocks together first. Okay guys, so this is my top. And this is my bottom two. And all I'm going to do here is put them together in the middle. And I'll come back when it's time to sew 2 rows together. Okay guys, my mistake. I forgot to turn on the record button when I put the quilt rows up on the design wall. But here is a photograph of them up there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sew rows 1 and 2 together. Then I'm going to sew rows 3 and 4 together. Once I get that done, I will press those seams one direction or the other. It doesn't matter, whichever way it wants to lay. Probably toward this, the sashing will be the best. Then I will sew those two pieces together. That just works better in my sewing machine because sewing it 1, 2, 3, 4 gets really weighty on the end, and it tends to pull on my sewing machine, and I don't have any control over it. So I'm going to get that done, and I will meet y'all back here once I have the quilt top put together, less the border. Well, guys, here we go. The quilt is all up on the wall and finished except for the borders. Now, I really wanted this fabric here for the borders. It's kind of a gray brown, but I don't have enough of it. I've looked it up. I'm not sure if I can find this exact fabric. It is a North Court fabric. Deborah Edwards is called Shimmer. So if anyone of y'all know where I might can find some, let me know. If not, I'm just going to take a little bit of this with me when I go shopping here and there until I can find something that I like. But that is my goal for finishing it, because I like that it keeps it toned down and not so so country that it won't work in my house. I love the blocks. I think they're fabulous. And I love animals, and I live out on the farm and stuff. Even though I don't have animals, but I do live on a farm. So to me, this is perfect for my home. Now, I wanted to talk about one thing real quick, the quilting of it. Obviously, I can't do that until I get my borders on. But because we have pockets, right? You're going to have to watch. If you would have the center away, you're probably going to have to maybe glue these down. I don't really know. I wouldn't be sending mine away to be quilted. So what I'm going to do when I quilt it, I'll just make sure that I quilt about 1/8 of an inch in along each of these. My thought was just to use that 1/8 of an inch in as my line and just do line quilting. Now when I get to this block, obviously it's going to change direction. So I'll have to measure it and get everything right. But my thought, and it might be each block individually, the only other thought I had too was to just come across these centers like this and catch it. But it would still leave you a little pocket here and a little pocket there. So I'm not really sure. I guess if you quilt it closer, you did the center and then maybe 1 inch out on each side, it would end up catching everything. It's a big quilt, so I'm not sure when I'll actually get around to quilting it. But I just wanted to mention that you will have these little pockets that you'll have to deal with when you're quilted. You just want to make sure that you don't let them roll back on you. Actually, that, that might be cute. Huh. Maybe that'll be our next thing. We'll think about that. All right. So anyway, like I said, she's all up here. She's ready to go. Everything came out pretty good. I did cut a few corners off here and there, but I do that with regular quilting, so that's not going to bother me all that much. It's not like I'm putting it in a show. I'm just put it up here to put in my house. It's not like it's a jewelry quilt that needs to be perfect. I'm not a perfect quilter. I'm just a quilter. Anyway, guys, I want to thank y'all all for all the new subscribers. I thank y'all for watching the Marshall dry goods video. That ran over really well. That's a great place. I'm just mentioning them one more time. That's a really great place. If you get the opportunity to stop there, stop there. If not, check them out online. Get on their email list. They send deals every day on their email list. Every day. Okay. Had a lot of positive people. A lot of people buy from them already. So if you read the comments, you'll see that a lot of people have good things to say about them. It's not just me. So what can I say? Always be yourself. Y'all be blessed. Have a safe week. And I'll see y'all soon. Bye.